latest news, captivating stories, and diverse perspectives from around the globe. From breaking news headlines to fascinating features, discover the stories that shapes our society and the voices that demand to be heard. It's Newspaper Review on Aloore Radio.
A wonderful morning to you out there. You're welcome to Newspaper Review on Aloore Radio. We are transmitting from GSM Studio at the Ministry of Information and Orientation, Secretariat Agodi, Ibadan. My name is Olukemi Omotosho. I have with me the Punch newspaper. Now, the first headline I'm going to take says, abductors demand 100 million for Ekiti school children, teachers. And the rider says, police, NSCDC, Amotekun, OPC, hunters form joint task force, arrest 5 suspects. The story can be found on page 7 of the Punch newspaper. And of course, NNPCL woos South Korean investors for gas project. That story can be found on page 36. And still on the Punch, I have Adeleke imposes curfew as 2 die in communal clash. The story can be found on page 43. And Ogun, 2 police inspectors, corporals dismissed for robbery. That can be found on the crime page, pages 4 and 5. I also have the story from page 46. Fashoroti remains Afenifere's leader, not Adebanjo, coming from the secretary. And 200,000 minimum wage no longer realistic. Label that can be found on page 42. Nigeria, IMF foresees weaker growth, coming from page 29 of the Punch newspaper. And Naira plunges in official markets. CBN warns forex dealers. The story can be found on page 29 of the Punch newspaper. I also have residents lives in fear as Ekiti bad roads turn killer kidnappers havens. The story can be found on page 3 of the Punch newspaper. Please stay tuned as we bring you much more. Let's go for a short break.
Whether you're a native of Ibadan or a visitor, Aloore Radio brings you closer to the heart and soul of Oyo State and beyond. Aloore Radio, the online radio that amplifies the voice of Oyo State.
我媳妇喜欢写身份证啦，谁啦？我媳妇修我，可以有以后，来呀又说呀。You don't fear, Abi? Now Aloore Radio you dey. If you know they listen to Aloore Radio, you are wrong. You are not doing well. If you dey listen to Aloore Radio, you are doing very well, very very well. In case you are listening to me for the first time, I'm Pastor Chinko, comedian, the senior man in the industry, the biggest comedian all the way from China. Now, Corona sees me for Nigeria. You understand the Pidgin, you understand Yoruba. In case you are listening to me in Nausa, again name, Sunana Pastor Chinko. In case you be Igbo person, and you dey listen to me, Afambo Pastor Chinko. Igbo people, you go kwenu. You shout ye there. All of now, when you say you don't know response, you go to shout ye. Now hey, Afambo Pastor Chinko, as I said earlier, in case you speak Yoruba so well, Omo Badekini so.
You're welcome back to Newspaper Review on Aloore Radio. You can like and share on Facebook at www.facebook.com/Aloore Radio. On YouTube it is Aloore Radio, and our website remains www.alooreradio.com. Of course, you can call in on 09039853731. The first story I'm going to take in details is from page 3 of the Punch newspaper, and it says, residents live in fear as Ekiti bad roads turn killer kidnappers havens. At the time, the feeling in Ekiti State was the security situation had improved as the harness while kidnap cases and gunmen attacks were fast becoming a thing of the past. The criminals talk on Monday in two different locations. The gunmen that operated at Okeako, Ipao Road in the northern senatorial district shot dead two traditional rulers and threw their communities, the traditional institution, and indeed Ekiti State into mourning. The same traditional rulers were the Onimojo of Imojo Ekiti in the Oye local government area, Oba Olatunde Olushola, and the Elisan of Esan Ekiti in the Ikole local government area, Oba Babatunde Ogunshakin, while the Alara of Ara Ekiti in the Ikole council area, Oba Adebayo Fatoba, escaped being kidnapped or abducted. The gunmen that struck along Emure Ekporo Road in the southern senatorial district and hijacked a school bus abducted no fewer than 5 school children, 3 teachers and the driver, put many families in pains and agony. These two incidents happened only a day after a ghastly motor accident involving the bus of a church at Ise-Ekiti claimed the lives of 3 female church members with no fewer than 10 others injured. Fear enveloped the state on Tuesday as residents, though, thought the 2 tragic incidents marked the return of deadly kidnappers in the state. Residents of the state lamented that the poor state of roads made the 2 incidents possible. According to them, the 2 traditional rulers were killed on Okeako Ipao Road, which had been in a bad state for a long time. They called on the state and federal government to address the security concerns in the state following the incidents that led to the killings of If you are interested in that story, you can turn to page 3 of the Punch newspaper for the full gist. Residents live in fear as Ekiti bad roads turn killer kidnappers haven. And coming from Metro page to crime page, I have this one that says 4 killed, 10 injured in Lagos-Ibadan expressway crash. 4 persons lost their lives while 10 were injured in an accident that occurred on the Lagos-Ibadan expressway on Tuesday. The spokesperson for the Ogun State Command of the Federal Road Safety Corps, Florence Okpe, in a statement said the bus conveying 20 persons somersaulted after a tire burst. The crash occurred around 5:57 a.m. around Sundrate along the expressway. The crash involved a white Toyota bus with plate number ZUR887ZY. Okpe said, noting that a total of 20 persons were involved. 10 persons were injured, while 4 male adults were recorded dead from the crash. If you are interested in that story, you can turn to page 5 of the Punch newspaper. 4 killed, 10 injured in Lagos-Ibadan expressway crash. And still on the crime page, I have this one that says, man 35 remanded for allegedly raping 50-year-old colleague to death. An Ondo State Chief Magistrate Court sitting in Akure on Thursday remanded a man, James Emmanuel, for allegedly raping a 55-year-old woman, Mrs. Deborah Abiodun, to death. The 35-year-old man was arrested by the State Police Command for allegedly killing the woman who was his co-worker at the Okeodu area of Akure on January 17, 2024. Punch Metro gathered that James, after allegedly raping the woman to death, hit her head with stone and dumped her corpse inside a waste pit. The defendant was later charged to court and arraigned on 2 counts bordering on murder and rape. At the proceeding, the police prosecutor, Anwana Josephine, told the court that the suspect committed the offense on January 17, 2024 at about 11 p.m. an offence contrary to Section 357 and punishable under Section 358 of the Criminal Code of Ondo State of Nigeria 2006. If you're interested in that story, you can turn to page 5 of the Punch newspaper. 35 man 35 remanded for allegedly raping 50-year-old colleague to death. And the last story I'm going to take on the crime page says guard kills self over ex-wife's remarriage in Kano. The Kano State Police Command on Tuesday said a 37-year-old security guard at the Prestige International College, Kano, identified as Nuruddin Shehu, committed suicide. Confirming the tragedy, the State Police Commissioner Hussaini Gumel disclosed to newsmen that the incident occurred inside one of the college's classrooms. According to Gumel, on January 28th at approximately 10:30 a.m., Abdullahi Abdulsalman of Riya Zaki reported that Shehu was found hanging motionless in a class. Police from the Gwale division, led by DPRO, bulldozed their way into the classroom, cut the rope, and rushed the body to the Murtala Muhammed General Hospital, where a doctor on duty confirmed the death, and the remains were subsequently released to the deceased family for burial. If you're interested in that story, of course, you can turn to page 5 of the Punch newspaper. Guard kills self over ex-wife's remarriage in Kano. And coming from page 6, I have Sanwo-Olu appoints new heads for LAGESC and LSWMO. The Lagos State Governor, Mr. Babajide Sanwo-Olu, has approved the appointment of Major Olani Iko, retired, as the new corps marshal of the Lagos State Environmental Sanitation Corps Agency, also known as KAI. The governor also approved the appointment of Adefemi Afolabi as the general manager of the Lagos State Waste Water Management Office. In separate letters of appointment signed by the head of service, Mr. Bode Agoro, the new appointment took effect from January 25th, 2024. If you are interested in that story, you can turn to page 6 of the Punch newspaper. And coming still on that page 6, I have ban on styrofoam stands, Lagos tells supermarket owners. The Lagos State government on Tuesday said it was intensifying advocacy across different levels in the state on the dangers inherent in the use of styrofoams, as well as the accelerated behavioral change among Lagosians. The Commissioner for Environment and Water Resources, Mr. Tokunbo Wahab, made this known when he hosted representatives of the National Association of Supermarkets and Operators of Nigeria. He urged that the ban on styrofoam be looked at in terms of the larger picture for all residents, a statement said on Tuesday. He noted that the campaign was to ensure that the message was passed to all segments of the society on why they should embrace the ban. He called for the support of the association and their members, stressing that there was no going back on the ban. For more of that story, you can turn to page 6 of the Punch newspaper. Ban on styrofoam stands, Lagos tells supermarket owners. And coming from page 7, kidnapping epidemic, abductors demand 100 million for Ekiti school children, teachers. Kidnappers of 5 pupils of Apostolic Faith Group of Schools, Emure Ekiti, and 4 staff members have demanded 100 million naira ransom for the release of the 9 victims who were taken away on Monday. The principal of the school's secondary session, Boje Olanireti, confirmed the ransom demand in an interview with the Punch on Tuesday. The abduction epidemic has continued to defy the efforts of the security agencies as cases of kidnapping were being recorded in various parts of the country daily. On Monday, government killed 2 Ekiti monarchs, the Onimojo of Imojo, Oba Olatunde Olushola, and the Eleosun of Eson Ekiti, Oba Babatunde Ogunshakin, while the Alara of Ara Ekiti, Oba Adebayo Fatoba, narrowly escaped. The traditional rulers were returning from a function in Kogi State when their vehicle ran into the suspected kidnappers who were operating on the highway between Ipao and Okeako in the Ikole local government area of Ekiti State. And the suspects were the suspects are arrested. I said, meanwhile, the police in Ekiti said on Tuesday that they had arrested 5 suspected kidnappers just as the command launched a manhunt for the kidnappers in collaboration with the Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps, Amotekun, Oodua People's Congress, and hunters. The police public relations officer, Sunday Adebutu, disclosed in a statement that the suspects were arrested during a joint operation with other security agencies. He said, and I quote, "The suspects were arrested by a combined team of police, civil defense, Amotekun Corps, Oodua People's Congress, and local hunters on Tuesday during a bush combing operation through Oke-Osun, Ikere, Igboaka to the thick forest around Iju-Ikere boundary." If you are interested in that report, you can turn to page 7 of the Punch newspaper. Kidnapping epidemic. Abductors demand 100 million for Ekiti school children teachers. And coming from page 9, farmer repairs 102-kilometer northeast field road. The managing director of the Federal Road Maintenance Agency, Chukwuemeka Agbasi, has pleaded with motorists plying the northeast roads to exercise caution and be more patient with it as it intensifies efforts at fixing the failed section of the road. Agbasi, who was represented by engineer Mansour Adama, made the plea in Gombe during an exclusive interview with Arewa Punch. If you are interested in that story, you can turn to page 9 of the Punch newspaper. Farmer repairs 102 kilometers northeast field road. And of course, coming from page 8, I have Yahya hails military as Air Force celebrates Bassa. The Gombe State Governor Mohammed Nuwa Yahya has hailed the officers and men of the Nigerian Air Force for their courage, competence, and doggedness in combating banditry, terrorism, kidnapping, and other related crimes. Yahya expressed his appreciation to the military personnel after a top military brass of the Air Force Wing Commander Maxine Mokelu inaugurates the Maiden Air Force Base annual social cultural activities at the 109 Combat Reconnaissance Group of the Nigerian Air Force in Gombe State. If you are interested in that story, you can turn to page 8 of the Punch newspaper. Yahya hails military as Air Force celebrates Bassa. Nigerian Labour Congress said on Tuesday that the 200,000 minimum wage it earlier proposed to the federal government was no longer realistic considering the country's current economic situation. The Congress, which spoke through its national vice president, Tomi Etim, was reacting to Tuesday's inauguration of the Minimum Wage Committee by Vice President Kashim Shettima. Etim, in an exclusive interview with The Punch on Tuesday, emphasized that the Congress would base its national minimum wage negotiation on the current economic reality rather than what it earlier proposed. He said, and I quote, "You are aware that when we opted for 200,000 naira, the economic situation, the socio-economic challenges were not as biting as they are now. And when you now look at the exchange rate, it was not what it is now. The naira rate not being devalued as it is now. So 200,000 naira is no longer tenable." If you are interested in that story, you can turn to page 42 of the Punch newspaper. 200,000 minimum wage no longer realistic. Label. And coming from Oyo State, Makinde creates post-traumatic center for Ibadan explosion victims. The Oyo State Governor Seyi Makinde on Monday set up a facility to tackle post-traumatic stress disorders among the survivors of the recent explosion in Bodija area of Ibadan. The Emergency Operations Center is located at the State Housing Corporation, Bodija, Ibadan. To report that 5 people killed, 75 people died, 77 sustained varying degrees of injuries, while 58 houses were damaged in the January 16th explosion. Makinde, in a statement by his chief press secretary, Sulaiman Olanrewaju, said the victims were free to see the medical specialist. He said, and I quote, "Survivors of the Bodija incident who may be experiencing any respiratory illness or symptoms suggestive of post-traumatic stress disorder should please call this number 09047 90962 to register their complaints." If you are interested in that story, you can turn to Osun State Governor Ademola Adeleke has again imposed a 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. curfew on Ilobu and Ifon communities following renewed hostilities involving the towns. He also raised a joint task force and deployed security agents, including soldiers, to the warring community. The governor announced its decision in a statement by the Commissioner for Information and Public Enlightenment, Kolapo Alimi, on Tuesday. Militants from Ilobu and Ifon communities are resumed fighting in villages at the border of Osun and Oyo State on Monday. Police confirmed the death of 2 persons and the destruction of properties in the resurgent crisis. If you are interested in that story, you can turn to page 43 of the Punch newspaper. Adeleke imposes curfew as 2 dies in communal clash. And with that, we've come to the end of today's newspaper review on Aloore Radio. You can like and share on Facebook at www.facebook.com/Aloore Radio. On YouTube it is Aloore Radio, and our website is www.alooreradio.com. You can call in for your advert placement on 09039853731. My name is Olukemi Omotosho. Thanks for listening and do have a wonderful day.
From the great city of Ibadan